morning, community. Jill here with North Texas Vegetable Gardening, Canning Recipes, a little bit of everything. Woo-wee. So, read an article yesterday, guys, that was quite concerning and really brought to mind why we grow as much of our own food as we can. I'm not going to say we grow our own food. I'm going to say we grow as much of our own food as we can because you know, even though we have these 2 high tunnels and that back acre, so far we've not been able to grow enough to keep us fed year round, but we're working on it and we're sure trying. But that article was talking about how farmers are retiring and they're all in their upper 60s, 70s, some of them even in their 80s, and their kids and their families don't really want to take over the farming jobs. That's very concerning. So whereas some of these farms have been 80 years in the making and several generations, the younger bunch isn't wanting to pick up the family business and grow food. Now here in Texas we have corn farmers, wheat farmers, all kinds of farms. I know out in California it's tomatoes, and let's see, down in Mexico it's tomatoes. A lot of our lettuces and stuff come out of Colorado. So farms are paramount to our survival, honestly. And it's not just that farmers are starting to retire and no one's wanting to take up that lead. Our farmland is being sold to people that don't want to farm it, or it's being developed into housing developments. And even out here by us, there's several plots of farm fields that used to be farms out here that now new housing developments are going up, and even apartments are going up out here. And honestly, I don't know why anybody would want to drive all the way out here from the Metroplex and live in a house with a small yard or an apartment way out here, unless your job was out here. So they are moving south and they are moving north, and our farmland is being devoured by, I'd say, some unsavory people. Not going to mention any names, but it's also being devoured by developers wanting to build some quite pricey houses here, even out by us, and we're about 30 miles south of Dallas-Fort Worth. Gardening for me was a hobby, and it was something I enjoyed doing, and you know, we got what we got and we were happy with what we got, and we're still happy with what we get. But now it's become a necessity. If these farms continue to go by the wayside, and we really don't have any other younger generations that want to come up and take up that torch, then we could all be in dire straits. So that would be the number one reason for you to have a garden. It doesn't matter how big or small, but to supplement and to grow some of your own food if you're able to. Yeah. You don't have to have a big backyard. You don't have to have a high tunnel. You don't have to have any acreage. You can grow things in containers. You can grow almost anything, absolutely, in containers. And we are really ramping it up. I know if you've been following us for any time, you know that that back acre is really coming into play now, and it's going to really come into play next spring, and we're going to load that thing up as much as we can. But the high tunnels do help. They extend the season for us. They help us to get things started earlier and help us go a little bit later for fall starts. They're not much we can do here in Texas in the heat of the summer, but up north it may be a different story for you all. If you got a high tunnel, you may still have enough of a cool breeze, so when you raise these sides and open it up, that you'll do just fine in the middle of summer. That's just not the case for us, but we can sure put them to use in the fall and in the early spring. Prices have gone up on the vegetables, no doubt about it. You can catch some deals at times, but not all the time. For instance, we used to pay 99 cents for a head of iceberg lettuce. We love iceberg lettuce. I wish I could grow it here. But now it's close to $2 But it depends on the time of the year, and it depends on the season as to how competitive or how cost efficient you'll be able to get your vegetables. Now right now, bell peppers are coming back in strong, and so you can get a good deal on those, and jalapenos are starting to come back in. But there's going to come a time when all of that goes out of season again, and we're going to be paying some pretty hefty prices on some vegetables depending on what it is that you want. And if at first you don't succeed, try again. Now we'll try to grow anything a couple of times before we decide whether it's good for us, because there's a lot of things that could come into play. It could be our soil, it could be our weather, it could be some foreign insect, which we are always battling. So you should at least try something. You should try to grow something, whether it's tomatoes or peppers or lettuces that are easy to grow, cucumbers. Now some of those are out of season, but right now you could probably start you some lettuces and some cabbage and broccolis. I know, especially south of here, you have time to get all that going. We got our seed starts going, and we're hoping that we have enough time. We're just not sure, because we had such a hot summer, and trying to get our seeds going was pretty tough on us. But you should try to grow something to supplement your grocery bill so you're not spending money. And now it looks like you should try to grow something that you enjoy, because we might not be able to get it if our farm people and our farmers that are retiring, if they don't find somebody to pick up their workload. Now I'll tell you that my family is from this area out here. My mother was born in Grandview, Texas, which is just a little south of me. And she lived in Rio Vista, Texas. Her family owned the grocery store, the only grocery store down on the square in Rio Vista, Texas. We call it Rio Vista, but some of y'all call it Rio Vista. It just depends. But yeah, and so, but prior to that, her daddy was a farmer. And they only bought flour and sugar and cloth to make their clothes and stuff. They didn't go to the grocery store like we do. They went to probably like their general store and got their flour and their sugar, but everything else they grew. They rendered their own lard, and they took care of what they needed for a year. And we really need to get back to that. We need to get back to trying to grow what we think that we're going to need for the year. Now we have 2 growing seasons, at least we hope we do here still in Texas. So, you know, we're trying to keep things going. But yeah, there was a time when there was no supermarkets. In fact, it's my understanding that Piggly Wiggly was the first supermarket where you could go in and pick things off the shelf. Prior to that, you had to go into a store and tell them what you wanted, and they picked it for you. My mother passed 2 years ago tomorrow, which is October the 7th. And when she passed, I had cousins, her first cousins, my second cousins, start to send me information on our family and our roots out here in Johnson County, Texas. So we go all the way back to the 1800s, I believe. And I think it was the late 1800s where my family were farmers. They were out off of 916, and a lot of you local folks know where that's at, out close to Joshua. They were out in Cleburne, and let's see, where else? I'd say probably that's the stomping grounds that my family comes from. But they had big farms out there. And then World War II hit. This would be my great-grandfather. World War II hit, and all his sons had to go to war. And so he was running the farm himself, and his name was Charles, and they called him, I think, CC. They called him CC or Charlie. But anyway, he had the big farm, and he was running it on himself. And then, because he was having a hard time keeping up with his farm, he went to doing dairy. And before his sons came home from the war, he was taking his one of his milking cows, it might have been his only milking cow, to town to auction off because he needed to make payment on their farm. And the bankers said, nope, you keep that's your living. And he had such a good reputation that they knew he would make it up. And then when my mother's father died, and he died pretty young of a heart attack, I think he was 51, they had that grocery store there in Rio Vista. It was Willis Grocery. And So when he passed away, my Mimi, my mother's mother, went to the bank, which was the Rye Vista State Bank. Many of you may know that. It was the drive-in, fly-in, walk-in bank that is not around anymore, which is sad because it was a great bank. But anyway, because they were right next door to their grocery store, my Mimi needed to get my grandpa, or my grandfather, I don't know what we would have called him because he died before I was even born. She had to get money, or had to go ahead and pay for his, let me readjust here, had to go ahead and pay for his funeral. And the bank helped her out because he had helped them out, and he would take them cantaloupe and ice cream in the summer and fried bologna sandwiches. So that was a way of life that you just don't see anymore. Things have accelerated like crazy in this world, even in my generation, even in my lifetime. I mean, back in the 90s when I was working, we didn't even have voicemail. We didn't have email. We didn't have all of this stuff that we are now using in our business offices. You know, cell phones, all of these things that have just come about in the last 30 years has just been phenomenal. And but it was a simpler way of life back then, and now it is the rat race. But we need to slow down, and we need to start trying to grow some of our own food, because there may come a time when there are shortages. I'm not saying there's shortages now, because I'm not seeing them, and at least in our area. You may be seeing them in yours, but I'm just not seeing them in our area. But anyway, there may come a time when there is, or that the food is so expensive we might not be able to get what we enjoy and what we like, or even what we need. So the number one reason for gardening and growing some of your own food is because the farmers are retiring and nobody wants to pick up that load, and that our farmland is being bought up by unsavory characters and developers, and they're developing the land faster than we can even spit. You know, that's just the way it is. So guys, I want to encourage you to start looking and planting your spring garden and your summer garden, if you can grow a summer garden. If you have time, look at what you can grow in the fall, and get to planting, guys. Get your seeds on order, get everything that you need. Start you a compost pile, get you some chickens, have plenty of eggs. So yeah, these are things that we all need to start thinking about. So I wanted to give you guys an update and just chit chat with you a little bit and let you know that article was very concerning. I did post it on the community page. If you want to read it, you can go read it. I think it's an eye-opener, and I think we all better get busy. Love you all. Take care. God bless, and we will be in touch. See you soon.